it's a question of what kind of leadership was there, and a lack of clarity, a lack of a clearness of program that could connect with the masses, like I said, both in the Republic and in the areas occupied by Franco. And that audacity, I believe, would come through having confidence in your ideas, having confidence in the working class ultimately being able to make these huge changes in their own lives, which instinctively, I think, frankly, that the rank and file were 1,000 times more revolutionary than the so-called leadership. But the leadership, because of the fact that it was supposedly the leadership, did hold them back. Did have, like you said, they didn't want to give up the guns. They didn't want to tear down the barricades, and yet they were disciplined. This was their leaders telling them this. So they did it, and they ended up paying dearly for it. What you have happening then is you have, as you said, not just anarchists and Pumists and so on becoming part of the Popular Front government, but you have them becoming representatives of an alien class, of the capitalist class within the workers' movement itself, a transmission belt to allow that state to reestablish itself, that capitalist state to reestablish itself by serving as the policeman ultimately of the capitalist class itself. So I do believe that that carrying out audaciously that revolutionary program to expropriate the land, to collectivize the land, to take over the factories, to nationalize them, that would have won people. I mean, if you look at, for example, the American Civil War, it was really a stalemate for a long time. I mean, the Civil War, in my conception, was a confrontation between the capitalist North and the slave-owning South. Two completely different socioeconomic systems that were incompatible with each other, and then ended up coming to civil war in order to establish, to reconcile those contradictions between those two social systems. But it wasn't until Lincoln emancipated the slaves that the war actually became a revolutionary war for the transformation of the social foundations of the South, that then the North really was able to defeat them. I mean, militarily, the North should have been able to kick the South's but pretty easily. I mean, the economy of New York was 4 times larger than the entire South. I mean, militarily, they had the capacity. But until they took that step of actually turning it into a revolutionary war, they weren't able to carry it out. Same with Napoleon after the French Revolution. Why was Napoleon able to kick so many kings and monarchs' armies? It's because he was basing himself on bringing capitalist property forms against feudal property forms, freeing the serfs. I mean, that's a pretty powerful way to get the locals to support you. If you say, we're going to free. It wasn't because Napoleon was a good guy, but that's the property form that he based his power on, capitalist property in France, and was able to wage a war. So the same thing goes for that. If in the Republic, in the areas held by the Republic, which were the majority of Spain, Franco's forces were repelled at first. If they had carried out these measures, like I said, land to the peasants, factories to the workers, if they had freed Morocco, or even just granted autonomy, the leader of the Moroccan resistance movement came to Madrid and offered to support the Republic and a lot of the troops were Moroccan, by the way. A lot of Franco's troops were Moroccan. He offered, if you will offer us autonomy, we will support you, and that would have cut a huge base of support. Same goes for offering the right of self-determination to the Basques or to the Catalans, although those were areas that were already with the Republic. But the Republic just said, no, we can't do that to Morocco, even just autonomy. And what ended up happening later on was Franco, the fascist, ended up granting freedom to Morocco later on. Why? Because he was threatened by the threat of, by the threat of revolt. But I mean, so the Republic was so cowardly in carrying out even modest social measures like autonomy for people on another continent, that they lost that potential to have that base of support that could have undermined them. So I do think it was a matter of, even if people had the best of intentions, if it isn't all brought together and linked up with a clear, conscious program, then there's a lot of confusion that reigns. And as someone who follows the Venezuelan revolution very carefully, there's a lot of parallels, like I said at the beginning, with the long, protracted, confused process that's taking place in Venezuela that we can see the tragic results of in Spain in the 1930s.